this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. I thought today to have another go at one of these flashback updates. Now for those of you that haven't seen one or want a refresher, what this is it relates to a previous kitchen time session. So what I do is I go and find a kitchen time session from a while ago that would have repotted or mounted one or more orchids. And then, providing I've still got those orchids, which isn't always the case, what I do is I sort of bring forward and do an update. But the idea of the flashback is that I use the info card mechanism to actually take you back and give you an option to view that actual kitchen time session with those particular orchids. So the idea is you watch that one first to see what actually happened back then, way back when and all that, and then you restart the video you've sort of interrupted to see what they look like today. It's a bit like the project orchids, but just for a single update and just for one or a few orchids. It'll never be lots because it would mean the original video would be too long. Yeah, so that's the idea. And today I'm going to have a go at it's a couple of Oncidium type intergenerics, larger ones, and they got repotted no doubt because they were in the cocoa peat. But if you go back and watch the video, you'll find out why they were repotted, what state they were in, and then you can carry on watching this video. So the break will come up now, so you'll get the little circle with the eye in the top right hand corner, and the idea is you click or tap on that. Sometimes you have to click or tap twice to actually get the video to show, and then watch that one and then drop back here. So the info card should come up now. Okay, so hopefully some of you have had a look at the kitchen session that these two took part in. We'll have a look at the Cheyenne first, because this has done something rather odd that certainly wasn't obvious when it was repotted. And first thing that's happened, which should be reasonably obvious, is these are the two original bulbs and they have desiccated a bit. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's where the flower spike was. And notice the yellow speckling? That's scale. So they've got in that leaf joint there. Not bad, but better not there, as they say. So I'll have to have the hippie soap at some point. The next batch. Once I find out that it hasn't done any harm to the ones I've already tried, of course. I'm not going to jump in and start doing large volumes of orchids with something I haven't given chance to see if it has any detrimental effect. That's an adult. And that's rare. It's very rarely do I get an adult scale, because I normally kill the little tykes before they get to adulthood, because that's where the eggs are, under those shells. So anyway, what this one did was it did dump some of its old roots, and this new growth, this was the little new growth we were looking at, is actually split into two and produced as a consequence two weaker growths. And I don't think these are going to bloom, because I'd have thought by now the spike would have shown on one of them. I mean, there's no spike showing down in these leaf joints. So I'm not sure this is going to bloom now, and I don't know what it's going to do next. This will be a strange one. In theory, if it's got what are now two new growths, they're obviously separate, that didn't push out a lot of roots. There are some new roots down in there, but not a lot. I suspect not as many as if it had been a single new growth, but there's some. So it has actually got some new roots down in there. Now I don't know what it's going to do now. Will it produce a new growth on both of them, or will it only produce one? Because effectively that's a deformity. Something's gone a bit wrong with the genetics there for a new growth to split into two like that. I've never seen it before, I must admit, although others have said they've seen it. So anyway, that's the sort of state of play with that one. No sign of a spike. The two growths are not finished growing yet. The bulbs have not swollen up to their full size, and we do have some new roots. So yeah, that's a sort of wait and see what's going to happen next on that one. An oddity. An oddity. And as a consequence of the not such a good new root system, there's some creasing of the leaves where they're not fully hydrated, although some of them are okay. Some of them aren't, and some are. So a strange state of affairs with that one. Right, now the bobcat, that's behaved itself. The tiny little new growth we had there has pushed on through the growing season. Nice swelling pseudo-bulb. That's not finished. That's going to carry on swelling a bit. And that new growth produced a nice set of new roots. The amount of the plant that we kept has actually stayed plumped up. No real reduction in size there. That massive bulb's still there. Still looking massive. Good stuff. So another speck there. It's not a scale, that one, it's a mark. And the new growth on this one does have a spike. That's pushing on nice, big strong spike there. It's not forming buds yet. I don't think this will be a branching spike. I can't remember. We shall wait and see. But progress on this one is fine. It's done what I would expect from an Oncidium intergeneric. So I'm just having a look down in that sheath to see if there's any sign of the next new growth yet. Signs of quite a few roots in there. And there's the next new growth there on the end of my finger. It's not moving yet, and I doubt if it will until it finishes blooming. So it's there waiting, ready to go, as they say. So this is doing exactly as I would expect of an Oncidium type intergeneric. Pushed up a new growth. It's possible if this plant gets larger, if it retains its leaves on this oldest bulb here. It's got this has got two, yeah, and the others down the bottom have gone. The next big fat one has got a lot more leaves. It's got the two at the top, but it's still got its side leaves. So that's actually got 5 leaves, that old bulb there. Yeah. So there's some strength in the old part of the plant here. I doubt if a huge amount of the roots survive, but some must have. And the new growth's pushed out a more than adequate root system. So this is now a strong plant. We've got effectively 6 leaves on the latest growth. Yeah? And, strangely enough, only 1 coming out of the top, whereas the previous 2 bulbs had 2 coming out of the top. Either way, it's got a good set of leaves on here, so, you know, there's some strength in this plant. Hopefully that the spike doesn't drain its strength. It shouldn't do. It's got the root system. It'll get the feed and water that it needs to push that spike on. And, yeah, standard progress. What would be brilliant if it managed to produce 2 new growths, but I can only see 1. But as that growth isn't moving yet and is unlikely to until at least the flower spike is fully open, and it may not move until the flower spike's actually taken off. You never know. So, yeah, progress as normal on that. At a reasonable rate as well, you know, because back in January that was a tiny little new growth. And, well, if you think it through, what is it, mid-September now, and the spike is pushing on, that should be in flower in, what, 2 to 3 weeks, something like that. Hopefully it will be in flower for the Wessex show, which is the 9th of October. But it might not be. If it's a slow progress type spike, then it might not be. But if it is, then it can go. It's not a bad plant. We'll take that in. But yeah, if you think that through, then the blooms are going to last an amount of time. And then it'll be midwinter with the short days and the lower temperatures. The lower temperatures aren't going to affect this. They don't go down low enough to affect an Oncidium intergeneric. But the shorter days will. That'll slow it down a little bit. And then we will probably get our new growth starting to move around the time where it was repotted, January this year. So in theory, the new growth should push on towards the end of December into January. And that's its annual cycle. And all I've got to do is keep it going. There's definitely easy enough room for the next growth in that pot, so it won't need repotting, which means the roots don't get disturbed. The roots it's got stay, and the new ones add to. So this should become quite a nice strong plant. Okay, so that's an update on those two, how they're doing. This funny one with its split growth. It is a distortion though. It's not right, it's not normal. So there's something genetically wrong there. And given that that was a mass-produced, you know, it hasn't even got a proper registered name, there could be something wrong in its makeup, in its actual genes, genetic structure. I don't know how thorough the investigations are, you know, into the parent plants when they do a cross, before they actually mash it up into virtually down into cells to produce the thousands of new plants that they want. So difficult to say. Anyway, that's those two, and that's what the flashback videos look like. An introduction, pop-up card going back to the kitchen session when they were repotted or mounted, and then carry on with the video looking at them as they are today. Okay, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.